So yeah, today's topic, child branding. We've all seen the beginning of the slide. Thank you for turning up. Just content warning, contains discussions of child mutilation and discussions on extreme indoctrination, specifically children again. So, moving on. There are three primary forms of female genital mutilation. 1, 2, 3. There's also a fourth, but that is just any uncategorized one. About to go over the three types. The type 1 is the basic clitoridectomy, which is the total or partial removal of the clitoris. Type 2 is again the total or partial removal of the clitoris, as well as some of the internal folds of the skin of the female genitalia. Type 3 involves the complete removal of the clitoris, as well as all of the innards, and pretty much the opening is sewn up, so there's barely any access or exit for urine, etc. So that is type 3. And also, when it comes to type 2 and 3, they have to be undone before the female can go through sexual intercourse on a wedding night, or childbirth, as you can imagine, which again is a painful process because the scars heal up, so it has to be cut open again. So. Oh, and they're done in extremely foul conditions as well. Unsanitary and very dangerous to the individual. Why is this relevant? Why are we discussing this in an atheist, humanist, secular society? Well, beyond the facts, of course, humanists, we deal with human life and, you know, how good it is. This is a map of female genital mutilation. If you notice, it's cutting through the continent of Africa and down the side. And if you look, it matches up pretty well with the nations that are or have a high Muslim population. Now, this has also gone on to be noted as the people who are most at risk are Islamic women. But that's not always the case. It can be other, denominations, other beliefs, etc. that can also partake in female genital mutilation, especially in sub-Saharan African countries. Of course, correlation does not equate causation. Islam does not necessarily directly cause female genital mutilation. However, there is a link between the culture that Islam creates on the idea of premarital sex, as well as Christianity to a lesser extent, and also just the idea of sexual promiscuity. It's designed to discourage that so the woman is safe for the wedding night, etc. There is no direct mention of the practice being ordered in the Quran. UNICEF, who are where I got the map of the female genital mutilation and also the quote on it's most likely is Muslim women who are affected, they did mention it's not mentioned in there. However, contrary to popular belief, Islam is not closed off from other doctrines. There are 4 main schools of law or thought within the Sunni religion, which is the religion that consists of 87 to 89% of all Muslims are Sunni. So their schools of thought are the Shafi, which, as mentioned on the screen, they do push for circumcision in both men and women as, it's the pact with God. It is the covenant. They all have to go through it. Then you have the Maliki and the Hanbali, which only recommend it on religious ground. They don't push for it as strictly as the Shafi'i do. And then you have the Hanafis, who do not regard female genital mutilation as sunnah. It's not right. It's they argue against it. So it's not all the same. There is discussion in the Islamic community about which one's the right way. These are all Sunni houses of thought. Shia teachings are a bit more obscure, but there's still disagreement within them. So just to give you an idea, the dark blue, the light blue, and the dark green on screen are the areas where FGM is either pushed for, as it must be. That's the dark blue. The light blue and the dark green are where it's just suggested as religious practice, and it's the light green which is where It's not part of the system either in the Quran or the dogma that's been built upon it. Why is it a problem? Well, beyond the fact that, of course, it causes untold harm to the child, both in physical pain during the procedure and in later complications, it also brands a child into a faith system which they themselves did not necessarily pick. It is also culturally mobile, and this has been a particular issue here in Europe, where it has actually come over. People have moved to Europe, and it has been one of the aspects of their culture that they have brought with them. Another problem with this is the fact that in Europe, the only country that's actually taken action in a court on someone who has performed female genital mutilation has been France. It's not, even though most European nations have laws in place against it, action's not really been taken. It's also hard to tackle due to the level of covertness. Of course, it's a private area, you don't often see it in public, so it's very hard for them to find out how it's, who's done it, etc. One of the places that I got the UNICEF studies from was a Canadian site, which was child nurses dealing with international students. So it was like suggestions on how they can deal with it in that case. Oh, and it's also not legally recognised as a reason for asylum. So if you're in a country and you know someone's going to perform, your family is going to take you to see someone who is going to perform this act, and you run away, you come to Europe, you will not be given sanctuary, you'll be sent back to your country and back to this procedure. So that's one major issue. What can we do? Well, we can work alongside the divided Islamic community, along with those who do view female genital mutilation as an issue, work alongside them, try to make that the prominent view, because we're not going to make any progress if we just attack the entire Islamic community. That doesn't work. Put down the facts that we don't believe in their deity. We need to work with whatever allies, in this case, we can actually get. They're going to be the ones to make change, if anybody. We also need to help raise awareness to the domestic female genital mutilation that takes place behind closed doors here in the UK and in Greater Europe. So, the fact that it has come over here and it does occur. I think there was a report recently in London that happened. There was a case there. I should have probably looked that up. And I would suggest also try to raise money for charity organisations such as the Desert Flower Foundation, which deals with female genital mutilation inside Africa and parts of the Middle East. Oh, okay. Any discussion on that first? Circumcision. First of all, I am not trying to detract from female genital mutilation. I'm not necessarily equating the two in how terrible they are. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to be that person. However, by discussing circumcision, we're not lessening one of the others. And I'm just going off the basis that a child should have the right to choose how their body is physically altered, unless, of course, for medical reasons. Circumcision has its origins in religious practice, of course. This is Abraham about to sacrifice Isaac. It's before this, I believe, when Abraham was circumcised. That's why he went from being called Abraham to being called Abraham. So it has its origins in said story. Why it originally turned up, there are various theories. The majority of people seem to think that it turned up because it sort of discouraged sexual deviancy or sexual pleasure. First of all, facts of circumcision. A lot of parents like to say that when their child went through circumcision, he was asleep. The child was asleep. They did not scream. They did not do anything like that. However, one issue with this is that a case in Canada, 1997, a doctor by the name Lander and his research team were testing babies. They were checking how, what anaesthetic worked best in circumcision. But of course, because it's a psychological study, they needed a control group. Control group would have to be a group without anaesthetic. So they had those children. And they had to cancel the experiment because the children were choking, a lot of them. One entered a seizure, and most of them had entered in a sort of comatose state of shock whilst this was going on. So they had to cancel the experiment because it was unethical and they could not continue. And most cases are not anaesthetized. This is a misconception that a lot of people have. Only about 45% of doctors actually anesthetize babies, and out of obstetricians, which make up 70% of circumcisions, only 25% of them use anaesthetic. So the issue is there. However, I must note the statistics I got were from 1998. I couldn't find any more recent, so that could have changed. Oh, yeah.
Could that be down to the dangers of anaesthetising babies, though? Is there a danger associated with anaesthetising
small children? I guess I'd have to look into that. I don't really know, but then the problem is, the statistics we're coming across later. Complications after circumcision ranges from the Americans say that it's about 3% complications afterwards, to in Germany they declared that it was about 10% of babies who have gone through circumcision suffer complications down the line. So so whether or not it's a practice that should be avoided in general is a question, because all this really showed is that even though a lot of people think that their baby is fine, their baby is okay whilst this is going on, inside it's a storm going on, really. It's a lot of pain's going on, the baby just goes into shock, shuts down. As mentioned, one went into a seizure. So if anaesthetic is also dangerous, then the question is, do we go through the procedure at all, or do we look for non-surgical alternatives in general? So, okay, sorry. There can be lasting psychological harm, and the word there is can. This is not in all cases, this is not necessarily the majority of cases, but there has been a plotted trend in the way that it can sometimes even lead to such things as severe as post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, higher rates of anger, low self-esteem, and problems with intimacy in life. But whether or not that's actually down to cause and effect is up for debate. There's a lot of vague research done on both sides in this. And there can also be lasting physical harm. As mentioned, 3 to 10% have complications. It can lead to narrowing of the urethra, which makes it hard to urinate. The tissue can regrow incorrectly following circumcision, which then the only solution around that is to go in again and tear the tissue. And there's this case known as buried penis, where if too much of the foreskin is removed, because of the way it reacts, it actually withdraws back into the body slightly. So that can occur in some cases. There's of course infection, because the glands is fused to the foreskin at birth. Contrary to most people think that you can pull the foreskin back straight from birth. It's not a case, it's fused, it's not developed fully. It's actually an evolutionary adaptation to prevent infection in that area. So then to remove it, you're allowing infection to occur more freely on the surface. But then we're going to discuss the urethra tract infections, which seem to decrease. So that's kind of picking your poison here. And there also have been a number of deaths. It can be anywhere up to 100 deaths in the US each year from circumcision. There are 3 conceivable benefits from circumcision that I could really find. The reduction in urinary infections. I put a question mark at the end of that because it depends what study you go to. Some studies say it reduces, some say it increases drastically. So there's no consensus out on that, and that makes me very curious. I mean, there's also questions on whether it reduces STI rates, because there are studies that show it, but then there's also studies that question whether it's actually that, or whether it's problems with intimacy that leads to reduction in sexual interaction, which leads to reduction in STIs. The one thing which I did not have any questions for was the total reduction of cancer in the amputated region. Because of course, if you remove something, then it's, cancer can occur in any skin around, but that area specifically can't occur. I've seen a counter argument on this in the case of breast cancer, removing the flesh around, mammaries, etc. So again, that's the question of whether amputation is the way to go. So where are we at the moment? Where's everyone's position on this? Germany's official Pediatric Association and the Dutch Medical Association have come out right and questioned the American Academy of Pediatrics because they actually pushed that as a good thing, They did it for a long time. They were pushing that, you really should do this for your children. Australia and New Zealand say that the benefits there are there, but they don't go far enough to take the risk. The Central Union for Child Welfare in Finland is just totally against circumcision. They don't allow it. And the NHS argues that the risk of routine circumcision outweigh the benefits. So there is no consensus. Again, I have to keep stressing this because I thought it was going to be an idea of go in there, look at the studies. It's going to be clear. It's like a war zone. Everyone has an opinion and no one's really coming out with any solutions. So one of the things is learn more. I can't go for every single study and show you. I'm now interested in going deeper, so that would be one aspect, learn more about the topic of circumcision. Question the reasons for not assuming non-surgical alternatives in care. Why can't you just clean the area more regularly? A lot of parents have been under the impression that the foreskin should retract, so in a lot of cases that children have had infections in the area, it's been that the parents tried retracting that area and that causes a break in the skin, which then allows infection to occur. And also question the ethical concepts around parental consent, specifically on religious practice, i.e. using it for ritualistic practices. We have to remember Abraham was 99 years of age when he first got circumcised, so surely you could argue that God can wait 16 years to have a genuine opinion from a child on whether they want to partake in that covenant. So now on to the mind, and this one's a bit more vague. This notion of child branding goes beyond the aspects of physical, as mentioned, female genital mutilation, circumcision. It's quite easy to mould and condition children. This is what education is based on. This is why you put so much money into helping children, etc. But it also means that it can be used and it can also be abused. For example, fear can be used as a tool for obedience to dampen the mind to asking questions. Every child is born a scientist, whether or not it's religion or if it's the education system that sort of beats it out of them. That's up for question. But yes, children unable to pick a religion for themselves are automatically ascribed the religion typically of their parents, unless their parents have made the conscious decision that no, they want their child to go out there and explore themselves. I was lucky, I came from a Catholic mother, she never put it on me, so again, this is not all cases, but it does happen that the child is made to dress a certain way, or, in this sort of sense, that they're given this role that you must be this good Christian child, or this good Muslim child, or this good Hindu child, etc. What form does it take? Well, it can vary significantly. I don't know if any of you recognise the images on the left. That's from the Jesus Camp, 2006 documentary Jesus Camp. It was an evangelical church which had a particular love for targeting young children and putting them in very emotional situations, getting the variations of faces that you can see there. And the picture on the right, anyone recognise? The picture on the right is Wayne Bent, who was the leader of Lord Our Righteous Church. He was arrested in 2008. You see, there's a mixture of women there, some young, some old. There are people inside his cult who are born into it, and they're as young as 14, etc. And he has this habit of periodically going into their bedrooms and sleeping with them. So he was arrested for child predation in 2008. And the fact is, some of them have gone on film saying this, and they seem absolutely fine with the idea. They have no sense that this is wrong, because one girl gave an account of him that said when he slept with her, she saw the gates of heaven, and she saw that God loved her and that she was chosen to be saved. You can argue that the adults had full consent when they went in. They may not have known exactly what they're getting into, but they're adults. These children have been born into that situation. They know nothing else. They don't go to public education. So they're sort of branded and they're put in there and they're trapped. They have no way out. What does 4 to 14 mean to anyone here? Not you. 4 to 14 refers to the age that evangelicals and now other Christian denominations really like targeting children, because it's the age in which it's easiest. It's statistically the age in which most children will come in. I've actually got a video. Actually, let's pause this for a second. You got to love the way that they use the children, You're losing us, therefore we were your property to begin with. So, yes.
The point is, the children aren't their future. The future is consenting adults.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least it should be.
Yeah, that's the church, though. That's like their window between 4 and 14.
When they meet.
Most secular societies come at the university level or in college. So, there's a bit of a difference in policy there. Faith schools. I'm not going to do as good as Johnny Scaramanga. Let's get this through quickly. Of course, faith schools can close children off to a wider society. It can leave them unprepared for external criticism if they've all been brought in a sort of monosphere or cultural canopy of one specific faith. Then they might get a bit of a culture shock when they go to wider education. It also denies them a wide range of social experiences which can be achieved through self-discovery or just having varied interactions. All the experiences that have made us are denied to these people. They're all fed the same sort of thing. So that's a big shame in their character development. And it makes our job incredibly difficult. Because it can be very difficult to reason with someone who's been told that people outside can't reason, or because they don't have God. They don't have the right to make knowledge claims, etc. So it can make very difficult what we're trying to do.
Or you can say that everything we say is down to Satan.
Yes, everything's a lie.
The first 18 years of their life. Why would you listen to anyone outside? It would almost be irrational to listen then.
Yes. So what can we do? Question whether a parent has the right to assert the beliefs or identity of themselves on the child, or whether this denies the child their autonomy, i.e. their ability to grow. Should the government really back off from putting any religious alignment on any documentation and allow the child to grow to a certain age, and when they can consensually agree that I'm part of this religion, I'm part of that religion, etc., or hopefully I'm not religious at all. Of course, campaign against faith schools with the VHA. Are you doing one on this at some point?
I'm going to do one.
You're doing one of this at some point. Also, try to give students on campus the opportunity to explore their philosophical/religious identity within a safe environment without ostracization. If we did have a person, who came from a Christian household turn up here, don't be a dick, pretty much. The rule number one, don't be that arsehole atheist who completely, wrecks everything for everyone else. Be kind to them, ask them questions, explore with them. So, that's in general what I'd suggest. Any comments?